Welcome back to Steve Robb Reviews. Today's review is going to be all about these. We're going to take a look at the differences between brad nails and, well, let's just call them narrow gauge or medium gauge staples. And we'll go between really small brad nails to really big staples. And when you should use a staple gun, when you should use a brad nailer. And what is better? Should you go with the pneumatic tools like I have here, all air operated, or should you go with the cordless? Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, if you want to go with the cordless, they do work, all the battery operated ones, they work fantastic. Get your wallet out because you're going to need it. These here, like dirt cheap, I'll show you one there I just picked up well over a year ago. I think it was like October, the first week of October 23. And I'm going to show you the differences between them. And for a lot of people that like to use, well, nail guns of some sort, or thinking about getting a nail gun, none of these are going to cost you, well, I've only got one that's worth $100. And the rest of them are all low priced. And, you know, they're between, you know, like a year and a half old to 40 years old, and they just work flawlessly. So it's up to you what you want to do, but they're great for woodworking, and they're great for not having to use a hammer and nail when you can position something and just go click, click. It's that easy. Let's go over to the bench. Let's take a look. Well, let's start off at this end right here. So we're going to start off right here, and these are all staples except this one. This one here could do staples and brad nails, 18 gauge up to 2 inch. I do not recommend this one here for using with brad nails. I only bought it for staples. This one here is I got like many years ago. It only does up to 1 inch staples. This one here I can do up to 1.5 inches, or I believe 1 5/8 staples. And this one here, well, as you can see, this shoots pretty big staples. 1.5 inches, no problem. And it's pretty heavy gauge, 16 gauge. And it is just awesome. I've shown this one before. Okay, this one here is a 16 gauge brad nailer, 18 gauge brad nailer, 18 gauge brad nailer, and a 23 gauge pin brad nailer. Super fine, super small, and it does a super job at fastening, you know, really small diameter pieces of wood to each other and not cracking or anything like that. So why do I have two 18 gauge? Well, this one here is just, it works flawless, but it leaves too much damage left to your wood. This one here is completely flawless, and it's got like a tip on it that never leaves any marks, and it's far superior. This is only a couple of years old, and these are all about 30 years old. And the only thing I'll tell you is, I used to be with the understanding that brad nails were interchangeable with the guns as long as you had the same specific gauge. Like these two here are 18 gauge. Well, I found out with the Bostitch, I have to use Bostitch nails, because if I try to use like pass load nails in my Bostitch, it jams all the time. So if you're going to buy this one here, I'll demonstrate it. You have to use the Bostitch nails. And these are some of the staples. And when I picked up that staple gun, these staples were on sale, $5 each. So I got like 15,000 because each box is 5,000. And that's the size that I use a lot. The narrow gauge, 1 1/8. Because I can fasten two pieces of 3/4 inch together just nice. And for me, I'll use a lot of these. So let's start off with we'll work our way from this end over and show you how they actually work. And then we'll show you the nails versus the staples, and how sometimes this is what you got to use, not this, and vice versa sometimes. So really, ideally, it'd be good have one of these and one of these to start off with. But as you can see, I've got many because, well, they serve different many uses. So let's start off with the 23 gauge brad nailer, and it's a super small fine pin nailer, and then we'll work our way up. Well, let's start off with the 23 gauge brad pin nailer, and you could see how small they are. And if you're wondering, yeah, I like to actually use a gauge and set my pressure for my air pressure for the tool at 90. Now, a lot of these air guns, they'll work anywhere from about 70 all the way up to 120 psi. And of course, many do not have any adjustments at all at the trigger, except my Bostitch 18 gauge. It has that option where you can adjust the depth. Now, the only way you can adjust the depth on these is to adjust the air pressure. Most of them are just adjusting the air pressure. More air pressure will drive it in further. Less air pressure will drive it in less. Except the Bostitch. The Bostitch has adjustability where you can leave it at the one pressure, and you know, if it's enough pressure, you can have it go down more or come up more flush, depending on your needs. So let's drive a couple of pins in here, and you could see how nice they are to work with. Okay, so let's try out a couple of these micro pins, 23 gauge. Now, how many of them flew right straight through? All of them. So now let's go to, say, a regular piece of wood, because they just spun right straight through there, didn't they? So let's go with another piece of wood here. See the little bottom sticking out? You see how fine that is? Now you could actually, you know, drive these in on a piece of oak without pre-drilling, and it will not split. They're just great for tacking something up while it's being set to glue where you can't put a clamp on. So let's go on to the 18 gauge next. Okay, so here's the old style 18 gauge that I had before. And I can draw in a couple of nice pins there, no problem. But what's the problem here? I'll show you. If you take a good look there, I don't know if you could see it or not, but you could see on the ends here, well, it's distorted the wood. So now I'm going to try it with the 18 gauge Bostitch, and you will definitely see a difference. So let's do that one next. Okay, so here's the Bostitch. You see this nice little foot on the bottom here? Well, that makes a huge difference, and that's why I bought that one, because as you could see, I hope you can see from there, I'll get you a little closer up there. It doesn't leave any marks, so when you're doing baseboards or anything like that, well, you know, you're not spending time filling in nail holes. So let's go on to the bigger one, which is the 16 gauge. Okay, as you can see, this one here has got a little bit of a rubber foot on the end there. That comes in handy, but I'll tell you what, 16 gauge drives a pretty big nail. Let's take a look. You see the size of that? It's a pretty big nail, right? And you can see it leaves a pretty big divot in the top here as well. So you just got to choose what you want. I mean, this here 16 gauge is plenty for a lot, but it's overkill for many times where you're going to use it. So let's take a look at the staples next, and we'll start off with the narrow gauge 18 gauge staple, and I'll show you the difference between what a staple can do where a nail is completely useless. Well, in this demonstration, I've just got the two pieces of wood here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the exact same size brad nail as I would a narrow gauge staple, and you'll see the difference. So here is just going to drive in one nail. Now how much do you think that's holding? Not too much, right? Here's the stick out right there. So let's just try that again. I'll just fold this over. And let's try with a narrow gauge staple. Okay, so there's a narrow gauge staple. And I'll tell you, it's not as easy to pull out. You could see on the end there, it's not really that far pressured in. I could actually go a little higher PSI on that. So let's just crank it up a little more PSI just so we get what you would normally see in one of these narrow gauge staplers and how they will penetrate the wood. So I'm going to crank that up to 100 PSI. Okay, so we're at 100 PSI. Let's just try it again. Now you can see it's driven in a lot further there, right? Okay, so now what I want to do with this one here is I want to show you what it looks like when you drive in a nail, because this is a nail brad nailer plus it's a stapler at the same time, and I'm saying don't buy one of these if you want to use it for nailing. So let's take a look at what it looks like after you drive in a nail. Okay, you ready? Let's just drive in a nail here. This is, I believe, a 2-inch. You see what it does here? Who would want to possibly have that? Now that is the ram from the that it uses for the staples. And who would want to use that for a nail? You know how much time you'd spend filling in nail holes? I mean, if it didn't bother you, like if you're just using it for like making, I don't know, stuff that you really don't care about the holes in it. But yeah, that one is useless. It's great for using for staples, because my small little staple gun only goes up to 1-inch staples, and this one here goes up to, I believe, 1 inch in 5/8 staples. So that's why I got that one. Okay, so let's move on to the big stapler and see the actual difference that a bigger staple and what it can do and where its purpose is. Okay, you ready? Now this is driving in. This is only a 1-inch staple. I do have the 1.5 inch, but you can see it's only 1 inch. Let's take a look. Now that is a huge difference just in power. But okay, so it comes out and there's the size there, and here's the staple coming through the backside. So I mean, obviously you'd want to have a longer staple for fastening in a 3/4 piece of stock. You want to go at least as far as the thickness of the stock that you're using, or more if you can. But yeah, it's pretty powerful. Use this here for putting on decking or plywood sheathing or anything like that, and it holds a lot more than a nail would, because you know, obviously it's got 2 legs instead of 1, and it's using the bar across the top here as its fastening point, not just a round nail. So yeah, it's all got its different purposes, and they're all good. Well, if I had to pick that, I would say the do-it-yourselfer and the regular hobbyist is working with wood or light construction, I'd go with the Bostitch here for the staple gun. It's 17/16 width staples, 16 gauge, and 1.5 inch staple is pretty well good enough for anything that you're going to do. I like it some ways better than my nail guns that I have for framing nails, because it's so much faster, easier to operate, and the fasteners are a lot cheaper than buying the nails. So, you know, it depends on what you're doing. Now, as for narrow gauge staples, I would say I would go with a unit like this. You don't got to spend a lot of money. It's got some nice little features where you can actually see, you know, if there's, when you're running out of staples. And, you know, it's nothing fancy, but it does the job. And when you get to the brad nailer, this one here, the Bostitch, is by far the best I've ever used. And you can just see underneath the trigger right down here, the yellow thumb wheel. You can adjust the depth, and it doesn't leave no marks at the end of your wood. It's awesome machine, And this one here, of course, it will leave a lot of damage behind. So you don't use this for any kind of trim work or anything like that, neither than this one. But they're all terrific, and it's a good start. You can start off, you know, with the low cost items first. I like 18 gauge and the 1/4 inch narrow gauge for different purposes. Like if you're doing, say you bought some IKEA furniture or whatever, like a cabinet, and it comes with a big sheet of cardboard and 5,000 nails. Well, one of these with a 1/4 inch you know, staple, let's say even a 1 inch or 3/4 inch staple, man, you can just do that in about 1 minute. Just go all the way around, so easier than giving you a great big bag of nails or tacks and just say go to it, right? So they all serve different purposes, but I'm really getting to like the staples better than nails in many situations. Well, thanks for joining me here today. I hope you found this informative. There's so many different tools out there. They all serve different purposes, but overall, yeah, I like them three right there. I find that the cost is not high. Of course, you're going to spend a lot of money on the big industrial stapler than compared to the other two items. But even still, for me, I'm kind of being swayed more and more to going with staples than actually using nails in many situations. For the brad nailer, I like 18 gauge for pretty much everything, you know, baseboards, trim. It seems to do a great job. Doesn't split, that's what I like. And you can hold something up and just go click, 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 click. And, you know, instead of having a hammer and a nail, I did that for many years. I'm not doing that no more. So thanks for joining me here today. If you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe and see some things that you might have not seen somewhere else. Cheers.